My name is Gary Owens. I'm the manager of the Hooligan Key Museum, and we'd like to welcome you to the Cultural Repository Ribbon Cutting Ceremony. At this time, I would like to introduce Ms. Barbara Johnson to say a prayer for the opening.
Before I start my autumn language, I want to say good morning to all of you, and it's good to see you, and hopefully in time we'll get rid of these because I can't tell who's who. Let us pray. George thought, but I up in your boom week a boy up my girl. The cook catch my smash my boo book up toy gate. I'm up junior my chum to her just. Muy high chop them up to to her just good. It then you up or if you put some. Need a took my tas has my way. Album did the more stomach. Ida came at the monato, my bird. Armo beam, what took a matter boy. In Union walk up boy, my has to me, has to up between a murder Ida key. A good catch my touching with you. I'm guy both for Ida. About how we should arm at Ida my high job. I'm just a him that George Long, but this is my great. I've been tiny boom. I've got much worse either my turkey home up it. A boy hamak it. I'm so that my task must my opportunity to chick pan. George, my high job them up to the word. Good job, see, my great. Job, see, bites is some water chopped up with oaks. Her cook catch my smash, my put up in my shirt up too much. Need a yam tatam, my pin cook. Someone kai ham. George, but this is my great. I've got much worse either. John Matthew with Udaki. I've got much some way arms at high so much pasture like Matamopi arms at Cup to drop of the boy have room. So thought, more high chopped up just to it. I've got much worse, so much coming to the kid up. So her come high. One little got up so it could come much come. Cook the boy have much. Up get her marks it. Supper come. Hi to my sup high to bochuk to chat sup high to my bochunit. Worse what the mabble had just. George thought it is worse at name time. Up sees my great. The most were much that's all the move. Cause the boy up in your boom we. A boy says my girl. A boy says some watch. A motana took shit my ticket. A boy to buy open. George thought it has burst up him time. Mardak should get good. Amen.
I'd like to introduce Ron Carlos from the Autumn Piipaash Language Program, Cultural Resources Department.
Good morning, everybody. I'm glad to be here and glad to see everybody. This morning I'm going to share a song from the Asha song series. It's hard to explain songs, so I'm not going to waste my time trying to, because songs are just one phrase, like a story, like a page in a book. If you read one page without reading the entire book, it doesn't necessarily make sense. So it's hard to explain songs out in translations. So. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carlos. And right now, I'd like to introduce Mr. Kelly Washington, the Director of the Cultural Resources Department, who will give a brief description of the history of the facility.
Kamdot Mubak, good morning. I want to thank my Mui, Ron Carlos, for that beautiful song. It is a beautiful morning. First of all, I want to welcome President Javier, Vice President Leonard, Council, Assistant Community Manager Ken Andrews, staff, special guests, and those of you who are watching the virtual event via live stream. I wrote down a few things last night and this morning because they told me I only had 5 minutes to talk. And we've been working on this thing for many years, so I had a lot to say, but if I didn't write it down, I'd probably be standing here for an hour or more. So today we celebrate the completion of our community's beautiful new cultural resources repository. And this is truly an historic event to be remembered. And fortunately, this facility helps us to ensure that it will be remembered. This event is going to be, it is being video recorded, photographed. There are flyers that went out, and there's agendas and all this ephemera. These are artifacts that we leave behind from today's event. And these artifacts will be preserved in this building, and 100 years from now, our great-great-grandchildren will be able to view them and hear them, and they will cherish them in the same way that we cherish those things that were left behind from our great-great-grandparents for us to view and to hear. And the location of this facility was not an accident by any means. So just to our west here, we have one of the earliest buildings constructed in the community, our first school. This one-room schoolhouse was built in 1899 and later served as a clinic and as a courthouse, which most people today probably remember it as. And across the street here to our south is the day school built in the 1930s. Some of our tribal members attending the Phoenix Indian School there as students helped lay the bricks that you see in the walls there for part of their vocational training. And some of you probably went to school there as well. South of that building is one of the old teachers' dormitories that was also built in the 1930s, and it was later used for other purposes such as child care facility, and most recently, it's been our interim repository. Just to the northeast of here a bit was the old rodeo grounds. In the general area here on this campus, we had our first community hall, police station, jail, fire station, education department, clinic, and a lot of other facilities that no longer remain here. Those buildings are gone. But the memories of those places and the memories of the events associated with those places still remain. This area here is full of our history, and we endeavor to preserve that history. So I can't imagine a better place for our new repository than right here. In 1987, about 34 years ago, our small tribal museum was established down the road a bit, the Huagamki Museum, the house of our ancestors. The community didn't have an abundance of resources at the time, but an old adobe building was refurbished. A modest collection of baskets, pottery, grinding stones, photographs, and other items were collected and displayed there. Now, most people are probably familiar with the public aspects of a museum and what they are, what they look like, but most people probably aren't familiar with the back end of museums, which is where most of the work actually occurs. Most museums have a repository where artifacts are housed, organized, researched, documented, conserved. At any given time, most of a museum's collections are housed in the repository, and just a fraction are put on display. For the first 18 years, the Huagamki Museum didn't have a repository at all. Later on, it had a 12 by 12 room, and later on, we refurbished that 1930s teacher's dormitory to act as an interim repository as our collections grew. In the 1990s, the community recognized that more space was required and spent several years planning and designing a new cultural center. Around that time, NAGPRA was also enacted, allowing tribes the opportunity to repatriate certain cultural items, but we had no place here to house them at the time. The community also desired to keep the artifacts discovered from archaeological projects within the community, so they didn't have to go elsewhere to be analyzed or to be stored. But in the community, we had no place for them. The plans for that cultural center were completed in the 90s, but the community still had limited resources, and no one was sure where we might actually find the funds for such an ambitious project. In the 90s, the community was engaged in its fight for gaming as well, and it was thought that might be one of the vehicles for generating income that would allow us to build places like a cultural center or like this repository. But the community had a lot of needs, education and healthcare and senior services, and there are many things the community needed to work on. But we never gave up on this dream. Today we celebrate the completion of a 20,000 square foot plus state-of-the-art facility. It's not the whole cultural center yet, but it's a very important part of it. I was thinking last night and this morning that I've spent more than half my life working toward the maintenance and preservation of our O'odham and Piipaash languages, cultures, and histories. And today we have a whole tribal government department dedicated to this effort, a whole team of dedicated individuals who day in and day out are dedicated to this effort. But we don't do it alone, and we can't do it alone. We stand on the shoulders of giants. We are simply continuing the vision and the effort set in motion by those who came before us. We are supported and encouraged by our leadership, and we rely on our fellow tribal members to share their memories, their stories, their knowledge. And though we rely on those who continue to carry on our traditional way of life and continue to pass those traditions on within their own families. We do these things as a community because we wholeheartedly believe that our way of life is worth preserving, that it's something worth fighting for. We are bound by our cultural heritage. It is our foundation that provides us stability in an ever-changing world. In Piipaash, one of the ways that we say we're happy is Iwa Chotk, which literally means your heart is good. So Nyadam Iwa Chotk, today my heart is good. And I want to thank everybody who helped make this project a reality, everyone here, everyone out there, and I look forward to the day when we're able to gather again, and we will have another event where we welcome community, and we'll gather in mass, and we'll have a great fiesta, and we'll give tours through this new facility. And until then, be patient, and today, take that opportunity to drive by and drive around the building and check it out. So, thank you, everybody.
At this moment, I would like to introduce the president of the Salt River Pima-Maricopa Indian community, Mr. Martin Harvier.
Thank you, Mr. Owens. Well, good morning, everyone. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Washington for his comments this morning, and also for recognizing our elected officials that are here. I appreciate our members of our council and the vice president joining us this morning for this program. I'd also like to welcome another elected official that's here with us. We have the vice chairwoman of the Thon-O'odham Nation, Waverly Saunders, with us. So I'd like to welcome the vice chairwoman from the nation here with us this morning. Thank you for joining us. You know, in driving up this morning, to be honest with you, I never visited the site under construction. I drove by when shovels were in the ground and the workers were working on the building. But to drive up and just to see the outside, and to be honest with those that are viewing, I haven't had an opportunity to tour the inside yet, and I'm anxiously waiting to see what's inside the building, as I hope you are also. But I wanted to start off by thanking those that were involved in the project. And speaking of project, I want to thank the project managers over this construction site here. Was engineering construction of the tribal government. I want to thank the staff is overlooking the project here. I also like to thank ADM, who was the designed the facility, and I'd also like to thank Maydal Construction. Maydal Construction is actually owned by community member David Dallas, and I really truly believe when we can get our community members involved in projects, we're going to have projects, because part of them is part of us, and they want the best. And so I just want to thank Maydal Construction and community member David Dallas and all those others that worked on this building to get us here today. You know, I just wanted to make comment on how important this is. I think the history that we were kind of going over as a council. This came to council probably as a project back in 2014. And like I said, the construction started in 2020. I believe it was March of last year. So it's a little over 12 months, 13 months to get us here today. So again, a lot of work was done and quality work. I'm telling you, just what I see here, it's really beautiful. And I can't wait for it, again, opened up so that everyone can come and see the building. Appreciate Mr. Washington also describing where it's at and everything that's around it. I was talking to Janet Johnson as he was speaking, and I said, do you remember that there used to be a jet airplane over there by the BIA office? Not really many remember that, but I remember the jet that used to be there. And but that to me is knowledge that some people have and some people don't have. That's why I truly believe having this facility, not only to take care of those artifacts that are found not only here in the community but off the community when projects happen, but it's also to me to gather knowledge from our community members. And I'll be honest, it's been really tough and sad during this pandemic, because we lost some elders that I truly believe contained a lot of knowledge and history about the community. So going forward, I know there's an opportunity within the walls of this facility to capture the knowledge and history of our members, of what they remember this community being like as they were growing up, and some of the important things that stood out to them. You know, I talk about the construction and things. I'll tell you, a couple of years ago, I guess, you know, I've seen pottery. In fact, part of going into construction for this building, or kind of getting an idea of what is needed here, we actually toured other repositories in the valley. Went down to Gila River. We went to other areas, and you always want to find out from others what would we done different if we could do it again. And so I know there was a lot of information that was gathered in building this. But I'll tell you, in touring those, you see the artifacts that were contained inside of those buildings. And I'll be honest, it wasn't really until here in the community staff took council to a site and to see what was unearthed in the area of the community and what dates that those objects dated back to. It just made it more important to me, the importance of recording and preserving our history. And that's another thing, not only gaining the history from our elders about what the community, this building is going to be so important going forward in teaching our young O'odham, our young Piipaash people, our children, who they are, to help them understand what our ancestors went through when they lived along the river in this area. We have such a rich history, and that's what makes this a special day, that we're going to be able now to preserve those items in the walls of this beautiful building. So I hope, like Mr. Washington said, hopefully you can come and take the tour, the drive tour that's been set up, and hopefully when things ease up, physically go inside the buildings. So with that, I want to thank everybody that was involved. Thank everyone for being here, and have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you, President Javier, for those inspiring words. At this moment, I would like to introduce Vice President of the Salt River Pima-Maricopa Indian Community, Mr. Ricardo Leonard.
At this time, and as we go live, and I'm hoping a lot of our relatives from California and throughout the United States and all the O'odhams and Piipaash that are watching that understand that this is something that has been looked at for quite a while. I just talked to Esther Moya to the side, and she reminded me of something that happened 15 years ago. There was a group of us that as a council at that time got together and started looking at the things that this tribe really needs. And one of them was a repository. So it was kept in the minds of the councils, each council that came before and left, but it was always there. So I want to thank this past council and the councils before and the councils now for continuing to support this. And I also want to say a thank you to the 4 tribes cultural committees out there, and for allowing me to be on their committees for the last 10 to 15 years, I believe. But we have our Tribal Historic Preservation Officer that also sits on there that oversees the meetings, and it was always something for him to bring up that we need a repository. So I want to thank him for all of that, and also thank you for Waverly Saunders, the vice chairwoman from the Tohono O'odham Nation, being here. But we talked about a lot of memories, and this area here brings back quite a bit of memories. My grandfather at one time was chief of police here in the BIA. And also my grandfather, when they had people in the area that they wanted closed, he actually had a home right back on the side there of the BIA building at quite a long time ago. But I remember going to school here when I was 1, 2, and 3 years old, and remember all the young people that I continued to know and continued to see throughout my lifetime. I also remember, I think they were called TWIP. A group of people from California, from the colleges, would come every summer and help support the young people here and move forward. But it was a good thing, and I'm not even going to mention the jail over here that was up there. So it was just a lot, and I hated to see it go down because there was so much history in there. So many people wrote their names and did little sayings or little tiny pictures of things, and it's sad that we sometimes have to take those things down. But this has been coming for quite a while, and this has been in the mindset of a lot of people. And also think back about the time that we broke ground for this building. And a lot of those elders that were with us that actually helped break ground are not here anymore. This pandemic took a toll, not only on our community, but on other communities throughout Arizona and throughout the nation. But I think with this step for us, for this tribe, it's going to be a good place to reflect. It's going to be a good place to house our Hoogam and our Patayan relatives, is what is found, and do it in a respectful way. And I think that this has been a long time coming. And I know, I hate to say this, but then I got a tour yesterday, and I actually walked through not the whole building, but I seen quite a bit of it, and it's beautiful. Beautifully done. So when things are up and things are better, I would hope that maybe small groups would come through and have a tour, just to look. But I know at a certain point that when remains are found and those type of things, everything is kept to a minimum of in connections with outside people. But thank you again for all of you that are here, and I appreciate this time, and it was just a long time coming. And this land really talks to me, and a lot of my friends that have since passed on, which I'm sad to say, that I remember their yells and their screams, and it was just something that's always going to remind me here of the young people that passed on in adulthood. But this is a day of beginning, and I just want to thank all of you again, Mr. President, our Tipo, Mr. Washington, Mr. Carlos, Ms. Johnson, thank you all, and Mr. Owens. Thank you very much for this little bit of time, and I had 5-6 pages, but I left him at home, so I didn't want to. Thank you.
At this time, I would like to introduce Mr. Shane Antone, the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer for the Salt River community.
It's good, good day, everybody. My name is Shane Antone. I'm the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer for the community here. I just want to echo and ditto everything everybody said, so far for the facility, from thanking those who built it, visioned it, council for supporting it, and everybody that had a part are the partners, ADM, and then our own ECS program. More specifically, I wanted to thank Mr. Jason Kirby. He's been, project manager, I believe. I hope I got the title right. But he's been with us every step of the way, as well as Kyle Dallas, who've really taken, to me, taken it personally to make sure that we had the best facility that we could make. So I wanted to thank them as well. I have I guess in a sense, the sad misfortune of reporting on the NAGPRA building. I think people have kind of mentioned it here earlier this morning, but NAGPRA stands for Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act. And it was passed in November 10th, 1990. And what it did, it was the scientific community as well as Native nations getting together and deciding that there were 4 groups of objects, items that they discussed. 1 being human remains, 2 being their grave offerings, or the grave offerings, items of cultural patrimony, and sacred objects. Those 4 categories. And they were, at that time, housed all over, if not internationally. I mean, I was going to say all over the United States, but also internationally. Early on in archaeology, there were no laws to protect sites, so it was more or less finders keepers. And so Arizona, or the desert Southwest, was a great place to teach archaeology because it's a desert. and there's not a lot of trees and not a lot of brush or shrub that you had to worry about in doing your excavations. And so, sadly, our hugam are all over the world. And so right now we're just trying to deal with where they are federally, nationally, I should say. And so there's a lot of repatriations I do where it's quite a process through the federal process to get them back. But with the facility today, one of the main things that we wanted to ensure that we did was have proper housing for our hugam. And so the O'odham belief, we take very good care of our people. And once they've left this life, spiritually, their physical remains are still here, and we're left to care for them and to do it properly. And so just immediately to my right in the back, there's our NAGPRA building. And so it's designed to house our remains until they're ready for reinterment into the ground for their final resting place in perpetuity here in the community, so that they no longer will be disturbed. It's an emotional thing to go to a site or to know that it's your responsibility to ensure that our ancestors, our relatives, are properly taken care of, and that they eventually get back into the ground. And so I want to say I'm really proud of our community as well, because from me to the community that helps at annual reburial to president and his executive office, they all take it seriously. They all have a compassion and concern. And so when we designed the building, we ensured that it was going to be proper for the hugam. The other two objects I mentioned, items of cultural patrimony and sacred objects, they will be housed there as well. And it was designed for that. And then also, it's a great, in the sense that they're disturbed, and that as we prepare them for reburial, there's visitations, songs, and prayers that are provided to them. And the building is designed specifically to facilitate that in the most kindest manner that we feel could have been done. So I'm proud of the building. I'm proud of the ability we had to give our input, and proud that everybody listened. And just as much as it's a sad thing, I'm very proud of how we've handled it collectively together. And I think that's all I really wanted to say today. Just really proud of what we're doing. Thankful to everybody that had an assistance to do it, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Antone. And actually, at the moment, I'd like to do a shout out to our neighbors down south, the O'odham Nation, Ak-Chin, the Gila River Indian community. They helped us to plan this, to design it. They helped us to see what worked, what didn't work in their own facilities. They were monumental in bringing this building to fruition today. And in order to celebrate all of us working together, I'd like to call on Mr. Leonard once more to grace us with the O'odham Year.
But before I want to recognize our council people that are here. Councilwoman Cheryl Doka over here, if you would stand. Councilman David Antone in the back here. David. And Councilman Mike Dallas back here representing the Lehigh District. I wanted to recognize them because they were also helpful in moving forward with this and understanding that we do need something that would house and protect our hugam and Patayan. So this song I've been thinking about is it's a God song, and it's called O'odham. And from what the story was told to me is that there's a certain time that our spirits leave this world, and at a certain point we raise our arms, and the beams of the sun touch down on our fingers and create these wings that take us on into the community, into the next world. So I wanted to do this also for all of my relatives and all my friends and all of your relatives and friends out there that have passed on, that they find that peace and they find that other world where all their relatives are waiting for them to come home. And we don't say, in autumn, we don't say goodbye, we say we'll see you again. So this is called a Totkoatam. Toki hana mayona mahina versi kanya him. Toki hana mayona mahina versi kanya him. Kunya mavercho va choma nyore na chong. Versing a tonorik ye ha ye kocha ye ha nam. Toki hana mayona mahina versi kanya him. Toki hana mayona mahina versi kanya him. Kunya mavercho va choma nyore na chong. Versing a tonorik ye ha kocha ye ha nam. Kunya mavercho va choma nyore na chong. Versing a tonorik ye ha kocha ye ha nam. Kunya mavercho va choma nyore na chong. Versing a tonorik ye ha kocha ye ha nam. Toki hana mayona mahina versi kanya him. Toki hana mayona mahina versi kanya him. Kunya mavercho va choma nyore na chong. Versing a tonorik ye ha kocha ye ha nam. Toki hana mayona mahina versi kanya him. Toki hana mayona mahina versi kanya him. Kunya mavercho va choma nyore na chong. Versing a tonorik ye ha kocha ye ha nam. Kunya mavercho va choma nyore na chong. Versing a tonorik ye ha kocha ye ha nam. Kunya mavercho va choma nyore na chong. Versing a tonorik ye ha kocha ye ha nam.
Thank you, Mr. Leonard. As we near the end of the program, I get a chance to speak. In the summer of 2014, when I told my mother, Christine Owens, that we had the opportunity to plan and design a new repository for the community, she said it's about time. And she meant that on so many levels. Just like when you speak Indian, it depends on how you are saying it, who you are saying it to, and why. That's what gives it its meaning. On one hand, we say it's about time after a delay or a lack of thought, but we also say it's about time when a person or community is ready to take on responsibilities, like the responsibility of collecting the information and objects of their history, land, culture, songs, dances, and much more. It's Salt River, a story that was created by and lived by the people for all these years. We stand in front of this new building where others have gathered before. The first schoolhouse from 1899 lies directly to the west of the entrance. It brought a different education and a new way of life far from our ancestral teachings. The remnants of the BIA day school lie directly south. Add to that a community hall, Presbyterian hall, jail, court, house, clinic, and the first museum called Pima-Maricopa, which means without a mat. all have at one time existed in the surrounding space of this latest building, and importantly, in the lives of the community members who grew up here. When the new tribal government in the 1960s came to be, a lot of the old buildings became renovations, redos, and fixer-uppers for the community to use. But not today, not this time. We are river people without a river. Our ancestors lived here for time immemorial, and we see and find remnants of them as we build the future of the community with economic planning and growth. We see remnants of them when we walk through the land that they themselves walked through so many millennia ago. We hear them through the sounds of the baban, quail, okokoi, shodek, tilpo, mispo, and other friends. We recognize them in the accounts of historic leaders who had the vision to build a tribal, culturally based infrastructure that they themselves controlled, a foundation that brings us to this point in time as it continues to take care of the community. Today we go on with our lives as O'odham and Piipaash, just like the ancestors. We will live through good times and more recent, the dark times, just like the ancestors. We will renew the learning through songs, dances, stories, the language, and hard work. We will teach and discover as best as we can in a still changing world. Now we have a home where we can keep our knowledge safe and secure, a home where community members will be the ones taking care of what we know best, our way of life. Here is where we can place our knowledge about O'odham, about Piipaash. Here is where we will bring our ancestors back to their home and take care of them. Here is where we will have more opportunities to research and learn more about our past, and more about what is important to us as O'odham and Piipaash. Here is where the history of the people will live on, through interviews, through the written word, through the recorded word. Here is where we will find the beginning lessons of those who are tasked by their elders to take care of the community. Here is where we will remember our families and friends who have gone but left a legacy of being O'odham and Piipaash. Here is where we will bring the stories, newspaper articles, books, journals of what others knew about us, and more important, what they thought about us. Here is a place where our songs and stories and knowledge will find a safe home for those generations to come. Here is a place where the young ones will bring their ideas of who we are and who they are. Here is a place where the young ones will eventually take care of the objects that they will make, that they will identify with. Here in this place, this safe place that will be available to them in perpetuity, forever. It's about time. We bring you the dedication of the Salt River Pima-Maricopa Indian Community Cultural Repository. May I please introduce Courtney and Esther Moya. Hit it. We thank you for joining us. Welcome to the Salt River community. Welcome, friends. Welcome all. So have an enjoyable day, and may God bless. May everybody have a good life. Thank you.